Hello, I'm the Analyst, and I'm here to talk about some of Hollywood's biggest box office flops. How many of you remember Michael Crichton? He was one of the premier science fiction authors of the late 1980s and 90s, having brought us the likes of Westworld, The Andromeda Strain, Rising Sun, Congo, ER, and most notably, Jurassic Park. However, not every one of Crichton's works brought a level of critical or commercial success, with one such adaptation being one of the biggest fiascos of all time. The 13th Warrior was based on Crichton's novel Eaters of the Dead and was directed by John McTiernan, best known as the director of Predator, Die Hard, and The Hunt for Red October. The film is based upon Ahmad ibn al-Fadlan's experiences with the Volga Norsemen, though it does proceed to adapt Beowulf for much of the film. Apparently, the original novel was written as part of a bet to see if Crichton could make Beowulf interesting for a friend of his. The film stars Antonio Banderas as Ibn Fadlan, and already there's some questionable casting, as he was Spanish and Fadlan was Arab. While admittedly Banderas was the closest thing this dude, could get to an actual Arab, he doesn't do all that much to convince us he is Arab. Especially considering how the year before he was Zorro! The film also stars Diane Verona as Queen Welu, based upon Queen Welpao from the poem, and Vladimir Kulik as Bulwif, who is clearly meant to be Beowulf. And again, our old friends at Buena Vista produced this through Touchstone Pictures.
And things were not always thus.
The film opens with
At
narration
one
from
time,
Banderas,
I was a poet in the
saying how he was exiled from Baghdad as an ambassador for eyeing a married woman.
I met a beautiful woman who belonged to another man. Her jealous husband complained to the Caliph, who made me the ambassador to the land of the Tasublan, a country far to the north.
Okay, there are a few problems with this opening. One, we don't even get to see the events that led up to the banishment, and two, this literally has next to no bearing on the plot. So the woman is married to a prominent noble, but eyeing her gets you exiled? What does actually talking to her result in? Execution? Banderas' character, Ahmad ibn Fadlan, is sent out as an ambassador to the northern barbarians, traveling with Melchizedek, who is played by legendary actor Omar Sharif in a glorified cameo, and with a caravan. However, the caravan is then chased by barbarians, only for them to retreat upon seeing Norse ships. Really? The appearance of Norsemen is enough to get them to retreat? What if they see actual warriors? What would happen then? Taking refuge at their settlement, which is on the Volga River, which is also where the real-life Ibn Fadlan met the Bulgar and Rus people, who are simplified to the Norse here, we see that the Norse are having a funeral for their fallen king.
He says the king will.
And Melchizedek establishes communications in Latin with one of the Norse, Harger, portrayed by Dennis Doroy, before we meet our Bulwif, son of the deceased king, who kills an opponent to become heir apparent before the dead king is given a traditional Viking funeral. Shortly afterwards, a young boy comes and says that his father's kingdom is under threat from a terrible creature, a Volva, also known as an angel of death, or a wise woman, appears and says that the threat can be beaten by 13 warriors, but one of them mustn't be Norse.
Must be no Northman.
So Ahmad gets roped in for the ride. While not being respected immediately by the others, especially for his horse,
Only an Arab would bring
A dog to war?
Ahmad quickly proves himself by learning their language by ear
Mother.
and showing his writing skills.
Only one God. And Muhammad is his prophet.
Actually, he proves himself a little too quickly. As such, he isn't given much actual character development. Actually, none of the Norse are given any true characterization or development. Also, he hears them all speak English,
Nej, nicka där. Nej, nicka där.
and then speaks English as if it were Norse. The filmmakers couldn't be bothered to have actors actually speak Norse. It's like learning how to speak French by listening to Spanish. I know, that's completely off too. The 13 soon arrive at the kingdom of King Hrothgar,
My lord, this is Bulbai, son of Gilead, come from across the sea.
who actually is a character from the epic poem, who confirms that the creatures they are under attack from are known as the Vendel. Okay, in the original poem, the creature was known as Grendel, and there was only one of them, along with its mother. We'll get to her later. Additionally, these are meant to be the Neanderthals from the original Eaters of the Dead. Here, the Vendels are portrayed as cannibalistic humanoid creatures that associate themselves more with bears rather than humans. When they first appear, the Vendel appear unstoppable, cutting through any defenses the Norse attempt to put up. Though once Ahmed realizes they're more human than monsters, they go down a lot easier. Though he would prove to be wrong, as we'll see later on.
These are not men.
However, with a lot of damage done to the group and their position nearly impossible to defend, they go to another angel of death, Orvolva, who tells them to defeat the Vendel, they need to kill the mother and the Vendel warlord. In the original poem, Grendel's mother was one of the main antagonists, seeking revenge for the death of her son and went on a rampage. Here, she's just residing in a cave. Much like the original poem, Bulwith and the mother engage in a brutal struggle before he beheads her, only for her to wound him, which didn't happen in the poem. Arriving back at Hrothgar's kingdom, Bulwith is dying from the mother's poison, as the remaining Vendel head to the kingdom to avenge the mother, as Ahmed and the others prepare to fight in their final stand. Bulwith comes and inspires them with a prayer of how the fallen will go to Valhalla before the Vendel attack. Bulwith ultimately kills the warlord, finally defeating the Vendel. But succumbs to his wounds soon after. In the original poem, Beowulf is killed fighting a dragon. Less of a inspiring death. After Bulwith is given a Viking funeral,
To who? In your land, one god is perhaps enough, but we have need of many. I will pray to all of them for you. Do not be offended.
Ahmad returns to Baghdad and writes about what he saw.
Loved other gods who shared their food and shed their blood. That his servant, Ahmed ibn Fahlan.
That was the 13th Warrior, and admittedly, there are elements that work in the film, like the scenery, some of the action, and the dynamic between Ahmad and the Norse. However, the characters are flat, and much of the action takes place in the dark, making it hard to tell what's going on. As an adaptation of Beowulf, it doesn't do the original source material justice, by changing the story of a warrior fighting off massive evils to the Magnificent 13 fighting off cannibals. It doesn't really work in any given context, whether it be focused on Ahmad as an observant to these events, or on Beowulf as the epic poem would. In fact, the original version of the film was so poorly received by test audiences that Crichton ultimately supervised overwhelming reshoots of the film, plus the film being renamed to The 13th Warrior, which referred to Ahmad, from the original Eaters of the Dead, which was the novel's title, and which referred to the Vendel. The release date would be pushed back from 98 all the way to August 1999, and drove up the production costs from $85 million to at least $100 million, including marketing. The 13th Warrior cost $160 million. Critics didn't really like it, as it holds a 33% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and when it opened on August 27th, it opened in second place, behind the juggernaut that was The Sixth Sense, with just $10.3 million. Didn't fall too harshly in its second weekend, though that was bolstered by Labor Day, dropping 36%. However, it didn't hold up too well afterwards, ending its run with just $32.7 million. It didn't fare much better overseas, where it picked up an equally weak $29 million, for a worldwide total of $61.7 million. After the theaters take their cut of the gross, Buena Vista would be left with $29.4 million, covering just under half the advertising budget, and the budget would remain red ink. John McTiernan's career began to collapse after The 13th Warrior, despite having the modestly successful remake of The Thomas Crown Affair. So, in that same year, which opened weeks before and would later have the massive failures Rollerball and Basic on his resume, before he found himself under investigation for wiretapping and tax fraud. The estimated theatrical loss on The 13th Warrior is $130.6 million. Thanks for watching, press the like button, and be sure to subscribe.